Here we go. Welcome to the Sovereign Way. My name is Elizabeth, and I am here to bring you into yet another powerful, activating game of becoming. This is the first session in a magical 4-week series called Becoming Sovereign in Wealth. And it is my delight and my honor to share this new series with you. The subject, Becoming Sovereign in Wealth, represents both the greatest of my superpowers and also my most humble need for Christ. And my authority to teach on this matter comes from my outrageous success in the boot camp of life. I majored in true wealth and I nailed every lesson. I nailed the lesson where everything was taken from me and my family had nothing left to live in but a tent with no running water and only a car battery and a small solar panel for electricity. Those days were lived in opulence, sensory luxury and wonder. And I nailed the lessons not just in adversity, but also in the uprising. Also when my net worth exploded by $500,000 in less than 6 months by entirely magical means. These days are enjoyed in grace, gratitude, and service, in devotion. So I know how to recognize his infinite manna and how to access exactly what you need. So this series is an exhilarating 4-week experience of spiritual acceleration to enhance your visceral experience of sovereign wealth. Exhilarate and accelerate. That sort of sums up the sovereign modality, to exhilarate and accelerate. That's what we're here for, the rise. Now, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to sovereign wealth, the art of acquiring resources is just the beginning. That's the high school spirituality. We will touch on it, but that's not really what you're here for. You're also here for the cultivation and the stewardship and the direction of wealth, because that is just as important a piece of your mastery as a spiritual pioneer. You are here to demonstrate sovereign power. So you need to be able to be sovereign in wealth. So for the next 4 weeks, you will enjoy high spiritual teaching straight from the source field, vibrational attunements, little adjustments in your biofield. You'll enjoy group work, coming together to unwrap things together, each of us contributing a piece of the puzzle. And you'll also see inspiring guest interviews, startling interviews with unexpected people, and rich resources and techniques to improve your relation and experience with true wealth. As with all things, the more you participate, the greater the outcome for you. So if you want to be truly rich in this experience, be present in the experience, ask questions, join the groups, put your hand up and pray generously over the abundance field for everybody involved. So does that sound good? Are you interested in improving your relation with true wealth? I'm looking at my group. I'm looking for nodding heads. Yes, yes, yes. So if you're ready for it, if you're up for this game, drop an emoji, either in the chat in Zoom or in Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you are. Drop an emoji or a one-word comment to encapsulate wealth, and also as a spoken commitment that you are in the game. Good. Dropping that in. If you're not sure what you've got yourself in for, I'm not surprised. Who says, oh, someone says, I'm ready for more than enough. Yes. If you're not sure what you got yourself in for, let me tell you what we're getting up to. Week 1, that's today. What is Manna and how does it work? You're going to walk away from today's teaching with an understanding in the metaphysical mechanics of converting mana into manifest resource. So that's the high school spirituality I mentioned, because that's the beginning. How do I take mana and turn it into a tangible manifest resource? We start there. Oh, I love the bee emoji. Yes, that's wealth right there. Week 2, biblical principles for stewardship and magnetism. You need to understand the significance of spiritual law and how to apply it for wealth generation and legacy impact. We don't get to play around with the magic of wealth unless we understand the rules of the game. Now, I know, we all know that you are an infinite spiritual co-creative essence, but righteous structure is important. Why? We'll find out next week. Cliffhanger. Week 3, opulence. Opulence. You'll cultivate the luscious sensuality of infinite abundance, and you'll experience the visceral sense of belonging that comes from divine provision, making love with God. And we'll really tap into the elemental magic of mana, the elemental magic of mana. We'll tap into that in week 3. And that leads us to week 4, which is magic and money. And this is something a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs, light workers, healers, disciples of Christ, missionaries in the field, artists and creatives and philosophers don't get right. We're going to explore what is the truth about monetizing your spiritual craft or your idea or your service or your devotion. And this lesson for a spiritual influencer or a practitioner is going to change your world, because this is something you do need to get right, because you're here to demonstrate the infinite goodness of God. So it's important that you're in abundance. Yes? Yes, good, good, good. Are you excited? Let's do it. Do you feel it? Do you feel it already happening? Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions. Number 1, what happens in a game of becoming? Becoming happens. Things become. And if we've chosen that that becoming is in relation to sovereign wealth, what becomes? Yes, yes, sovereign wealth. So in this game, we are becoming truly wealthy. Here are some housekeeping rules. Number 1, when you follow along earnestly with a series in the sovereign way, you're participating in a living game, just like Jumanji. So real timer shifts will occur. So you have to play at your own risk. If you're in the Oasis, then you're supported in our group. We're going to be doing group work together every Tuesday, coaching every Thursday, Q&A after every teaching. We're not leaving you alone. You are here and you are supported. Live prayer, live energy work, and a lot of humor and fun. Maria is our group leader. She is extraordinary. And if you're in the Oasis, you're in a very powerful shared container. But the teachings themselves belong to God. So you're welcome to watch them for free on YouTube or in the Sovereign Way group. Just be mindful that to shift big, we need to shift together. We each bring an important piece of the puzzle, which is why we need small groups. So please join the Oasis if you haven't already. Number 2, pay attention. This is no ordinary law of attraction teaching. I'm not going to be teaching you about vision boards or positive affirmations. I'm going to be teaching you true spiritual law, vibrational mastery, and magic. So the high school mantra that we know, ask, believe, and receive, it's valid. It's a basic metaphysical protocol that I know you're familiar with, but I'm not going to spend any time on that sweet, sweet milk, because we're going straight for the strong meat. This series is going to challenge you. Be prepared. The best way to succeed with this series is not to try to process everything intellectually, because as much magic is in the transmission as is in the teaching. So sit back and receive, but be diligent, be present, and be patient with yourself as you practice. You may feel that the teachings are very meaty and it's hard for you to retain all the information, or you didn't understand everything that was said. That's okay. Go back and watch the replay if you like, but more importantly, participate in the groups and share your questions and help others unwrap as well, because this is coming from the source field. It is high level. So before we start the teaching, let me introduce Sovereign for our first time travelers. Welcome. We are very glad you're here. You belong. The Sovereign Way is a non-denominational spiritual philosophy and theological model that consolidates magic, genius, and Jesus. And it's especially useful for helping cerebral mystics and high thinkers interpret the true links between consciousness, manifestation, and form. And that helps us to create poise and space for true sovereignty, so we can play the enlightened life. In the Sovereign Way, we say that the journey to the kingdom has ended and the journey within the kingdom has begun. So the ministry within our work brings people closer to the visceral, personal, intimate Lord, and allows a rapid expansion and ascension in consciousness within the merciful field of Jesus Christ. But we say that we're not here to ascend into a cosmic, intergalactic, celestial, transcendental enlightenment. We say that the richness of the lived experience here now, that is reality. And that the real experience of ascension is a deepening dance with a high resolution lover. And that frees us from the need to escape from life. It frees us from the need to escape our human condition, or our shared infrastructure, or the oppressive forces of collective control, or Mercury retrograde. We don't need to escape any of those things, because none of those things matter. We are not spiritual seekers. We are sovereign, and we are alive. And that is the basis from which we are working on in this series. So for you to get the most out of this experience, I'd like you to join me now in making these assumptions. Number one, you already know that you've chosen to know that God is real and that spirit is very much alive. Number two, you know you're in ascension. You're consciously choosing to participate with an improving world. You're making more love. And number three, a message from above. Number three, you already understand that everything manifests has an energy field, and you've built up a storehouse of wealth in potential. So you understand that you already own wealth in some sort. And you either need help to convert that wealth into a manifest resource that you can use here in the fourth dimensional experience, or perhaps you already have an excess of manifest wealth, but you need help to transmute that wealth so it can be a part of your fulfillment, including your innocence. To be true is to be innocent. So true wealth is also innocent wealth. So if you need to transmute your existing wealth and be cool with being wealthy, even as a spiritual pioneer, then that's what this course will do for you. So if this is your first time playing with us, please write first time in the comments wherever you are. If you're on Facebook or Zoom or YouTube, please write first time, because we want to reach out to you and make sure you have a Sovereign Study booklet. This booklet includes the diagrams and the explanations that we're going to be using to help us wrap our heads around slightly harder concepts. And it also includes our core philosophy and some exquisite Bible verses that will enliven you and enrich. So we want you to have that. Please let us know that you're new so we can get that to you. So if you're a first timer, let us know. Wave, say, cooey, here I am here. And if you're a seasoned Oasis member, I want you to write, I'm back. And then go out and reach out to someone new and make sure that they know that they've arrived home. So bring them in. Okay. Promise? Have you done that? Good, 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 good. Are you sitting comfortably? Check. Get comfy. And let us begin. This part is quickfire philosophy. So arrive, be present, be focused, and think clearly. Here we go. What is mana? The mana that you're familiar with and that we're using in this experience is best known from the book of Exodus in the Hebrew Bible. It was an edible substance that God provided for the Israelites during their travels in the desert in the 40-year period following the Exodus from Egypt and prior to the conquest in Canaan. Now, Israel is a spiritual lineage whose vibrational characteristics is the one who struggles with God. That's literally what Israel means, the one who struggles with God. So that's the vibrational characteristic of this spiritual culture that was enslaved to Egypt, which was a materialistic and hierarchical culture. So we have here one culture of materialism and hierarchy, and we have another culture enslaved to that, and that culture struggles with God. And so there was a rebel thought leader called Moses. Are there any rebels in the group? I'll put your hand up. Oh, there's a few. Look at you. So there was a rebel thought leader, just like you, a spiritual pioneer, who broke from the system that he was brought up in, liberated the people, let my people go, and then he led them across a vast expanse in mind and vibration, almost to the threshold of the promised land. So I know that you're familiar with all of these dynamics. I know that you're familiar with enslavement to materialism and hierarchy. I know that you're familiar with being delivered from that. I know that you're familiar with rebellion from that. And I know that you understand the experience of a vast desert and a vast expanse of mind. So during a time in the desert when the people needed the sustenance and there was none provided by the natural world, there were no hamburger stalls. The hamburgers have come from the natural world. So God sent a supernatural manna from heaven. And it appeared everywhere as a soft white substance that was collected on the surface of things, like on the blades of grass and on the surface of rocks. And it could be used for whatever it was needed. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but the name manna derives from the Aramaic question, manhu, which means, what is it? Manna means, what is it? Now, in the Hebrew Bible, manna is described twice, once in Exodus, which is Exodus 16, 1-36. It's described as a fine flake-like thing, like the frost on the ground. And then it's described a little bit later on in the book of Numbers as arriving with the dew during the night. And it had to be collected before it was melted by the heat of the sun. It says it was like a coriander seed in size, but white in color. And it says that raw manna tasted like wafers that had been made with honey. Now, historians and scientists have argued that the manna spoken of must have been crystallized honeydew of certain scale insects like aphids, or perhaps a lichen, a sort of mossy plant colony, or others say it was the crumbs of frankincense that had fallen from the boswellia tree. What is it? What is it? What is Manna? What is the supernatural wealth in your life? Look and see. Manna is a fresh, infinitely available stream of sustenance that can always be accessed, but not stored unless it is for a time when you are only available for devotion, worship, and rest. That's a biblical principle. We'll touch on that again next week. In this series, we are dealing with Manna, how to unlock it, how to cultivate it, how to harvest, use, steward, and serve. So, what is it? Let's discuss. We will get nowhere with the question, what is Manna, unless we understand Trinity. If you have your paper and pen, get it out now. If not, don't worry. Yes, 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 we've got papers, pens, beautiful notebooks, favorite pens. Let's understand Trinity. Now, the unicorn pens. The entire universe can be simplified into three distinct elements: source, spirit, and substance. These three things are distinct from one another, but they are indivisible. They cannot be taken from each other. It is a trinity. Now, source, this one up here, source, this is the greatest mystery of all. It's a preceding consciousness. It's a majestic knowing. It's the alpha and omega of what is. Now, to a human, you could know it as consciousness. It's knowing, the seed of awareness, the preceding intention. Father. Its name is love. Its essence is love. And all that derives from it, which is all, is love. Spirit, this piece of the puzzle, spirit is a dynamic characteristic of love. It's love in motion. It's love in power, you could say. It's movement. And this was proven in the 1920s with Einstein's unified field, a unified field of being, like a body of water in constant becoming. Source is, spirit moves. And that leads us to substance. Substance is form. Substance. Substance is form. It is particularized reality. It's when reality becomes particular. This is where God is no longer potential, but fully actualized as something in the spectrum of frequencies of all things. Here is a thing, and it is God's body. So we're going to use the term adamantine particle. Adamantine particle. This is the primordial particle which precedes mass. So all other particles are derived from the adamantine particle. It precedes mass. So all the mass, whether you want a $100 bill or a lover to dance with in the night, both of those are made of adamantine particles. So source commands the spirit to move the substance. A quick visualization. Imagine for a moment here that we have, here's sand. This is sand from Siesta Key in Sarasota. And this sand is made of millions and trillions and zillions and gazillions of fine, fine particles. Now imagine the Sahara Desert. An infinite number of fine particles of sand. Now imagine that those particles of sand are the substance of God. And imagine, watch in your mind's eye as the wind blows across the Sahara, creating sand dunes that take shape and then change their form as the winds of God shifts. This is the mechanic that we're dealing with when it comes to your loving authority to command mana to take shape. Intention knows, spirit moves, and adamantine particles take shape. So mana is a stream of adamantine particles that can be formed according to your loving consciousness to become the manifest resource that you most need. I need cheese, I need fuel, I need a lover to dance with in the night. All of these things are made of adamantine particles, and your authority to command the particles of creation to become mana and take shape according to what your true needs are, that authority depends on your embodiment. It depends on your enlightenment. It depends on your ability to know I am that I am. So the more you understand yourself as this trinity of source, spirit, and substance, the greater your authority to manifest. So positive thoughts and imaginative visioning, these are a part of the mental hygiene that help your manifestation, but they are not the be-all and end-all. You are not creating with your thoughts. Your thoughts are just providing you with a creative narrative that you're interpreting through. You're actually creating with your magnetism. So, like I said, the amount of spiritual authority that you have to create in the image of God is immediately related to the extent to which you know that you and all things are source, spirit, and substance. If you do not believe you have the authority to command substance to form as mana, then you will need an intercessor to do that for you, like your employer or your wealth advisor or your schedule or your followers or your badass boss bitch hustle attitude or your credit cards or whatever else in form you defer your power to. But when you are sovereign, you have the authority to convert mana into a usable resource. So for the rest of this course, I am speaking to the part of you that is sovereign. That is the part of you who is in this series. If there is another piece of you in lack consciousness, that person can wait a moment while we do the good and holy work. Imagine a channel of water, and there's debris and the water's dirty. You could spend hours, days, years, eons fishing out the dirt particles out of that water. Or you can flood the channel with clean water and let the debris leave that way. That's what we're doing. We're just going to flood the whole thing with clean water. We're not going to spend any time on shadow work. So let's talk about converting mana into usable resource. Here comes some metaphysics. These are mechanics. So this is a brainy part. Let's first ask the question, what is actually a usable resource? What is it that you actually need? You see, true wealth is one of the flavors of the essence in your fabric. Some people have plenty of cash, but for the life of them can't seem to access belonging. Or perhaps they have plenty of belonging, but they can't seem to access understanding or affection or open doors or solutions. Others have tremendous luck and health, but can't seem to cultivate a profitable vocation. How can I do something with my hands that actually lends me a thriving life? The source of all of these things, of course, is the same. It's our holy, majestic Father. It is the one true provider of all. And true wealth is integrative. So true wealth isn't, I have all the money in the universe, but I can't for the life of me come up with something to spend my time on. That's not true wealth. True wealth is an integrative experience. I am thriving in my life. So let's look then at the metaphysics of conversion. Now, I know that none of this is new to you, but I'm going to rearrange it so that it makes sense. So what you're listening for right now is remembering. You're listening for the activation of something you already know. Okay? Here we go. Source commands spirit. Spirit moves substance. Substance is experienced in the 4 dimensions of your real life, space and time. This is the sovereign model of human consciousness. Here is a field of all things. This is God, source, spirit, and substance. You are an extension of that. You are, if God is all things, then you are one of those things. And you are a piece of that. You're a strand of infinite loving. And this is the part of God that is in motion. This is infinitely creative spirit, which is always creating. It's always creating, even if you're having a bad day, which is why we call it the wrath of God sometimes. But it's always creating, and it's creating through your framework of consciousness, right? We create as we believe. So if you know that you are wealthy in all things, then that creative spirit moves through your framework of consciousness and is projected as an energy field through your cellular consciousness, through your biofield, and becomes your biomagnetic footprint in the world. And so the adamantine particles of God's body arrange themselves according to that vibration that you put out, and that's life. So I know that you understand all these things, and I know that you understand that the energy field that you are projecting acquiesces to your knowing. So whatever you know commands the spirit to move the substance. Like that. So here's the densification of particularized reality, where energy becomes stuff. It becomes, your field of abundance can look like either a $20 bill, or it could look like a lovely rustic jar of homemade blackberry and lemongrass jam. Here's a little teaching from the Bible. This is Matthew 6:19. And it's all about laying up treasures in heaven. And it's important we get this right now at the beginning. These are the words of Jesus Christ. He says, do not build up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, right? Do not invest so much in building up the structure of what is here in the manifest. Instead, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal, right? No one can touch the wealth that you've stored up for yourself in heaven. And he goes on, he says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So if you've laid up treasure here in the 3D, then that's where your heart is, which means that you're invested, your identity is invested in structure, in form, as opposed to in the one true infinite source. He goes on, he says, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? Think of that. If your framework of consciousness is built in shadow, is built in the knowing of not enoughness, of scarcity of whatever the thing is, then what is scarce in your life? everything. Everything. How great is your darkness? By the way, these are the boundaries of everything you know. Everything you experience is in here, is within this part here. Absolutely everything. There's a whole universe more for you to experience, but right now this is all you've got. So if the eye is bad, how great is the darkness? He says, no one can serve two masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. You can serve God through money. You can. You can serve God through money. You can build money in service to God. You can enjoy money in service to God, but you cannot serve money. If you're serving money, then you are serving a manifest structure, which is a mortal illusion, right? Because those sand dunes of the Sahara will change. They are always changing. All institutions must fall, all structures will be destroyed and transmuted into something else. That doesn't mean we fear structures, we honor them, we play with them, we use them. They serve us. We do not serve them. So these are some biblical principles that teaches us that our goodness, our acts of love, and the measure of our devotion and service is what builds up storehouses of treasure in heaven. Now, where's heaven then? If that's where my money is, where's heaven? Now, in the sovereign way, we're not talking about a linear geography or time somewhere other than here. We are not saying that the universe is linear and that heaven is a long time over there after you've died. We're saying that there is only now. There is only here and now. So we are talking about, when we speak about heaven, we're talking about an unformed potential. In Genesis 1:2, the spirit moves across the surface of unformed void. This is where your wealth is stored. So your acts of goodness and your trust in provision generate unused adamantine particles that are stored in a field of potential that can be activated in your individual biofield, regardless of what's going on out there in the world. Regardless of what's happening with your job or with the economy or with the inflation or with Biden and Trump. Regardless of what's going on out there, you can activate these stores in your biofield. You have the authority to do that. So heaven, in a non-linear sense, is here now. So your true wealth is here now. Yes, do you agree? If you agree, write it down in the comments, wherever you are. I agree. We are making a shared agreement together. So we're going to go more into these mechanics as the series evolves, but for today, I want to give the main principles for conversion, 3 main principles for how we convert. It's not quite ask, believe, receive from fast food spirituality. It's similar, but we're going to go a little bit deeper, and we're going to go truer as the series progresses. But number 1, the first thing, the first piece of the puzzle in terms of conversion is knowing, right? Your faith. Because we create as, let's see, just use this one. We create as we believe, right? As we make agreement with reality. So if I say, I know I will never get the thing that I want, then what am I creating? I'm creating never getting the thing that I want. If I know that I'm rich, but everyone else is in lack consciousness, what am I creating? I'm creating an isolated experience for myself. If I know that I'm poor and the stars aren't aligned yet for my destiny to be fulfilled, then what am I creating? a never-ending future, something over there that has to happen in time. So if you want to have any real authority when it comes to the conversion of mana, the conversion of what's stored in your potential into manifest tangible resource, whether that's cash or a lover in the nighttime, then you need to tend to what you know about provision and manifestation. What's in your diamond about provision and manifestation? Manifestation. Like that. So you need to tend to what you know. Your knowing is what you create. Remember the story in the Bible where the woman had been bleeding for 12 years and she goes through the crowd and she touches his garment and she's immediately healed, and he turns to her and he doesn't say, I am the greatest healer of all time. He says, by your faith, you have been healed. So go now and be whole. So by your knowing, be truly wealthy. And then go and be wealthy. So there's the greatest secret to converting mana, is to know that it is here. This is what it is. What is it? Manhu, mana, what is it? And whatever mana is for you right now, it is on its way to becoming something else. It is dynamic and alive. So know that you are source, spirit, and substance, and that all things are source, spirit, and substance. And if you know this, then you are always in an infinite garden of provision. I know none of this is new to you, but isn't it handy to arrange this knowing in such a way? So first principle to conversion is knowing. Second principle in conversion is creative malleability. You cannot outline what wealth looks like. In high school spirituality, we're taught that we get to be very precise and say, I want exactly this red Lamborghini, and I want a man who has dark hair and wears a belt buckle every Friday, and we get to be very precise. And that's true in the beginning stages of your spiritual journey, because you get to practice conversion and seeing things come true. But as you progress in your ascension, you become truer and truer. And so the conversion mechanics shift a little bit, because you're now not supposed to be completely seduced by the idea of magicking whatever you want in the world. Now your spiritual training is in being in devotion and service to something far greater than your egoic desires, which means we no longer outline what wealth looks like. Because true wealth, you see, is not divinely measured in any specific human currency. So the less rigid you are in how you need your fulfillment to look like, the less attached you are to those external measurements. Don't build up your wealth out there in the world where moths and rust will get it. And now the more free you are to make love with God, receiving him in the glory that he creates for you personally, specifically, because guess what? He knows you and he adores you and he wants you to be rich beyond your wildest dreams. And when it comes to creativity, I'm going to give you this word, or this distinction that we're going to be using sometimes throughout the course. We're going to call it jam jar economics. Now, money is a usable, workable resource in the fourth dimension because of its universal agreement reality and consensus value. $100 is $100, and we all agree that it is $100. But a jar of jam, a jar of homemade blackberry and lemongrass jam, is worth whatever the subject perceives. And your freedom to use it means you have to be able to allow the value of the jam jar to match the workability of the 4D system that you're participating with at the time. We will be looking at this more in detail over the coming weeks. But here's a distinction for you to meditate on: jam jar economics. The third little part in conversion is to understand that saying yes to whatever invitation opens for you is not the same as settling. And this also is a little different from mainstream spirituality, which will teach you that you shouldn't say yes to anything that's below your standard, that you should say no to anything that isn't the hell yes, or that the man who comes to you and is prepared to love you with his whole heart isn't good enough because he's not wearing that belt buckle on the Friday afternoon like you put on your vision board. Saying yes to the invitation is not the same as settling. If you believe that your Lord and Savior is alive and real, if you believe that the universe is conspiring to work for you, that there is goodness in the body of God, then you say yes to the invitation. So when the world says, would you say yes. If you are cynical and you believe that earth and heaven are separate, that the world out there is out to get you or control you or trick you in some way, and that God is only on the inside and not on the outside, then you will separate yourself from the spirit in form. Because look, if you choose to say that God is somewhere other than substance, then you're separating yourself from the spirit in form, and you're creating a dualistic experience where you need to meet certain physical conditions in order to realize the manifestation of what you desire, right? So, do you, A, believe that God is for you, that spirit is alive and ever present? Or do you believe that God and spirit is somewhere else and that you need to meet certain conditions in the 3D in order to activate God's love for you? I know what you believe. I know what you've chosen. You know the truth. We are in God's body. This is what it is. Yes, good, good. Keep the comments coming. We agree. We agree. God is real. And that means that if you believe that God is real and infused, literally indivisible from the substance that we are participating in right now, then why wouldn't you say yes to the invitation? Because if God is all things and the universe is already moving to your magnetism, then you'll say yes to whatever opens for you, even if it doesn't look like the hell yes, or the perfect client, or the ideal paycheck, or the perfect home, because you know that it is something on its way to becoming something else. Saying yes is not the same as settling, it's the same as allowing. Nor is it exclusive. If you say yes to this, it doesn't mean you've said no to that. It's a process. All things are in process. Yes to this opens yes to that. Now, of course, I understand you're going to set some boundaries. You might not be able to volunteer 8 hours a day. That's not what I'm talking about. I know that you are setting good stewarding boundaries for yourself, for your time, and for your energy. But when God opens a door for you, walking through that door will lead you deeper into the kingdom, will lead you to something else, to something new and new and new. That's becoming. That's not seeking, it's becoming. And the final piece is humility, allowing, receiving. A lot of people are practicing receiving. They don't quite know how to fully receive. And most of the time, what's in the way is pride. Pride is usually what's in the way, pride and vanity. Now we can go into the navel-gazing shadow work of why is it so hard for me to receive? It's because when I was a child, I was told I had to perform in order. Bullshit. Move on, get over it. It's pride and it's vanity. That's all it is. That's preventing you from receiving what God wants to give you. You are old enough and mature enough now to see it for what it is. I say that with all the love in the world and in conviction myself. So the humility it takes to receive and to allow God's goodness before you can extend it, that is a key piece of the puzzle. And boy, will we get into that in the next few weeks. You are going to learn how to receive, and you are going to receive big. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes. So there we have it. That's it for today. Chunky, meaty, delicious teaching. I don't know what you received from the teaching, but I do know what I shared. Number one, you are source, spirit, and substance, and so is everything else. Number two, mana, what is it? What is it? Ask this question often as this week goes by. What is my wealth here? Whatever situation you're in, where's the mana? What is it? What does it look like right now? I have an abundance of time. I have an abundance of love. I have an abundance of friendship. What is it? What is this mana? Maybe it's the secretion of an aphid. I don't know what you'll find. So you have the authority to make mana by your loving command into spirit, to shift the substance of all things. You have that authority. You're allowed in any given time to say, this is what I need, and receive it. In fact, as part of your job and your responsibility on this path of conscious enlightenment. So if you've chosen to be an ascending master, you've chosen to be a Christ disciple, a light worker, it's your job to demonstrate luscious becoming wealth. And finally, what I shared with you is that the way you convert unformed potential into manifest resource is by knowing and allowing. And this is a huge, huge upgrade from ask, believe, receive. You are way graduated from, I really, really, really want to manifest that red Lamborghini. This is, I know it is so, and I allow it to be. Deeply, deeply embodied trust. So this week, you're going to be asking the question, what is it? That's your job this week. Next week, we're going to look at the biblical principles for stewardship and cultivation. Beautiful teaching. Maybe you think biblical principles sound boring, but I assure you they are not. This is a mystery beyond. And it's really, really important that we understand the holiness of righteous structure. Structure doesn't need to diminish our essence or our horizons. In fact, structure gives us a vertical freedom that allows us, that is like the rocket fuel. So we're going to understand what the biblical principles are for good stewardship and cultivation. And that's going to help us really bring cohesive energy to our field of magnetism so that we can magnify and enhance that field of abundance that we're living in. That's next week. All right, my darlings, thank you for traveling with us today. Again, my name is Elizabeth. This is The Sovereign Way, and you're in a teaching series called Becoming Sovereign in Wealth. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST, our group called The Oasis will be meeting for the first time in this series to unwrap these teachings and to work on some assignments to take this out of the archives of spiritual concept and into real practical life. So don't miss that. That's a really, really beautiful part of this offering. All right. I'm now going to turn off the live stream and then open the table for our students in the Oasis. If you aren't in the Oasis, but you have questions, put them in the comments in the live stream on Facebook or YouTube. Put them in there and let people engage with you, because as we participate, we really do become together. So my darlings, thank you for coming. I place this offering in grace for the Majesty, the King of Kings. Have a wonderful week. I love you all.